WQRO to the people. This is 100 watts and a wire.
I think that means that we are up, Scotty. It's Christian K0STH episode 438. Welcome to it, give or take. There could have been some times in there when I failed to log properly. And there were some specials in there, too. I was going through the archive a little bit, Scotty. Thank you. Thank you, band. Thank you, band. Thank you, guys, for stopping in. I thought that would just go ahead and shut it off. Scotty! All right. It's Christian K0STH. Audio. Well, good evening. Steve is on assignment this week. Scotty and I are here chilling, and we were putting things aside. What Scotty and I find ourselves doing is we do intersect at the intersection of amateur radio, life, and then audio. So we're kind of, he just called us both nerds. And, because we're audio geeks. You said geeks, not nerds, right? Nerds are...
I'm good with either.
I think nerds is okay, too.
I wear it it's a badge of honor.
Yeah, I don't know how. I do believe, though... There we go. Here we go, Scotty. Now you tell me if you feel the same. Scotty and I come from basically the same part of the world. He is the official engineer of 100 watts and a wire, and he has his own van. It's the WJZ van. I asked him to put 100 watts and a wire on the side. He said, you got to keep WJZ on the side, man. So when we do our remote broadcasts, we always take the WJZ van, and we were saying in our semi-quarterly staff meeting that we need to go on tour again. We need to take it out on the road, and everybody agreed, and then it was like, oh, well,
just so everyone, the WJZ is local Baltimore news, is the local Baltimore TV station.
Very good. Scotty's always a teacher. He's teaching the people. Yeah, WJZ has the big...
A few years back, they were auctioning off one of their broadcast microwave vans, and it was really beat to crap. And I joked that we should pick it up, and so it's been our van ever since, the WJZ van. Just so everyone knows what the hell we're talking about.
What was it? Do you remember the price? It was like either 8,000 or 18,000 or something.
I think it was 18 because it still had the pneumatic mast on the top, and I don't think the microwave dish was there, but it was pretty beat up. It still had some racks and a couple patch bays, and it had some gear, some antiquated broadcast equipment in it. But it was in really rough shape.
This is the intersection that I'm talking to you about, and it's okay. So yes, it's a Baltimore television station. Channel 13. There's some history there, right? I got it right? WJG is Channel 13? I've been gone for a while, Scotty. Okay.
I think that's right. I know. I just flipped the channels. I think you're right.
That's 13, right? And they have they've been on for a long time and a storied history. I don't know if they're any good or bad anymore, but the fact that this van came for sale, a couple of radio, audio, broadcasting type nerds like us. And anybody, think about it. If you're listening to this and, you have that hometown station, you either like it or you don't, or they were great at one point and they changed, and they're good enough for you to complain about them when they change things up enough. And so WJZ, that's kind of a big get. Something like the 98 Rock van, that would be fought over. You know what I mean? Like you would get 4 or 5 buddies. You'd be like, come on, we got to get it, Scotty. It's got the old logo, dude. You remember the old logo?
The 98 Rock band. That would be a one hell of a piece to get.
That was our radio
iconic station in Baltimore. You used to be a DJ there.
I was many years ago. 1995, maybe 1996 and part of 97. It was 2 years. And I loved it, Scotty. I loved it so much, dude. It was the big leagues. And let me set this up, and thank you for bringing that up. I spent my time bouncing around some of these radio stations you guys won't be familiar with, but you could look them up. I worked in like Reislerstown. No. It's Westminster. It was WTTR. There was WAMD out north. So you had a station out west. You had one up north. WAMD was very small, but it had a very popular local morning show. And when I'm describing a morning show of this type of station, I'm talking about, I think his name was Captain Jim or something. Insert anybody, any radio town.
Right, any typical morning show jock sort of thing.
But you know what he did, Scotty, that was so different, is that he wasn't really doing shtick. He knew that you lived in the town. You know, Scotty is over there. He's got some cattle, you know, or Donna's going to sell some, like, her flowers. Give her a call at 410-555-5555.
Small town radio.
Oh, I loved it so much. And then he'd say, you know, we got a couple of coupons for half off tires. The snow season's coming. And it was all part, you know, it was just local. And that's kind of what you hope for. And maybe one day again it'll come back. But I'm a romantic when it comes to this stuff. But 98 Rock, I tell you this because I worked on what was a llama farm up at WAMD or nearby. There was a smaller one on top of a bank I was working for. And then I would go out west to WTTR, which I believe is probably still there. And I'm maybe 1,000 watts. I don't know what they were running, but they were not big leagues. I was paying my dues, and thank God I did.
FM station? I can imagine FM station.
They were both. They were both AM, I think. They were both AM, like 1450 and.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Or, you know, something in there. Yeah, they were AM, but they would play music, and it just sounded cool to me on AM radio. But I was paying my dues. I'd have to drive out in all directions just to kind of compile a demo tape. You know, here we go with audio. And so that's when I first started, you know, really thinking about my audio. That's a good tie-in. I won't transition too far off. I'll come back to that.
The tie rods on the Jay-Z van are a little loose, so we'll get it back in the lane.
Yeah. So I kept calling the program director at 98 Rock, and I would send my tape. I sent my tape, and you would do about 90 seconds because these guys at the time, all program directors that hired me were men during my career. So these guys would throw in your tape, and if they didn't like you in 90 seconds, go back up there. And keep working it out. And if you were lucky, they gave you the note, you know, that said, you know, like, you know, work on this. They maybe would give you a little bit. Some of these old radio guys were helpful. Some of them were painfully brutal. And I think even the honesty of that sounds like shit and your breaks are too long. And why are you talking about yourself? And now here I am, 100 years old. And I'm like, why did you just do that break like that? I mean, come on, man. Why did you? And you talked over the end of the song. Don't you understand? The producer was there for that. Somebody told me the song. Scotty, one time in Philly, I talked over the end of a song, you know, probably of Hotel California, where it's like, come on, who else gets to play this again? You know, and it's such a long fade.
Really long outro fade.
Next guy on the Fender Stratocaster back there. Can I get my whatever? And I think I talked on the fade of the song. It's pretty common.
Stepping on Joe Walsh and
and a man who I deeply admire to this day. His name's Kevin Gunn. One of my influences. He said, you know, the producer was there for the whole song. He wasn't even my boss. The producer was there for the last note. You know, it's very arrogant of us to step on the work of the producer. And I thought, Jesus Christ. And this was after I got to 98 Rock. I told you I'd jump around here a little bit. It was just a note that all those things mattered in that recording. Don't do that. So those kind of notes helped get me at least a conversation at 98 Rock. I'd call up and I'd leave a message and I'd say, hey, it's Christian, you know, I may have sounded a little different. It's going to snow this weekend, but I've got good tires. You know, if you need me, call me. Because, you know, he had given me some notes and I was still in his mind. That's what you want, is you want to be in their minds as an option. Somebody calls out, somebody gets sick. sick. Don't you waste a moment. Call me up.
Give me holla. Call me.
Call me up. And there was a time, and they did. They gave me a tryout. There's people on the East Coast may know the name, but the DJ, the personality, his name was Stash, right? He was working at night, and my tryout was at midnight. Actually, I think it was the 1 o'clock hour. I got an audition at the 1 o'clock hour. And at this time, Stash was doing nights. And he was there. And I watched him work. Talk about audio. We were doing reel to reel. And he'd record a call. And it was a DJ. It was Stash. You guys on the East Coast remember. He's probably still around, actually. He's got to be around in that market. If he is, bless his heart, he's been through some stuff. He's got a song fading out, right, on the radio. It's like a minute and a half, and he's cutting tape. And I was new. I was auditioning, and I was like, what?
Holy shit, this guy's splicing on the fly while he's on the air.
And the time is ticking. He's got to come on. Like, he's got to come on. But first, he's got to get this thing taped up.
I get this splice done.
He's like, rip, pencil in his mouth. 32 seconds. And I'm already nervous. It's Stash, I'm like, it's Stash. And here I am. Well, the song is really at like 15 seconds. And I'm like, wow. He tapes this up, pulls it back,
threads it back up,
gets it back, and cues it up. Comes on 98 Rock. And like at the end, and like plays the caller. Because you record calls on the reel-to-reel tape at that time. Play it back. I mean, just like guys were just so far ahead of us in our understanding and all of that. Thank you, Scotty, for that opportunity to talk about that. The level of audio knowledge that other people have can really help you no matter where you are. This was not how I chose to do music and cue things up. He was flying. Things were just flying. He was cutting. He was really good, and he could roll like that. For me, I'm like, I got 3 minutes of Joe Walsh and the Eagles. I think I'm ready. Let me test it anyway. I'm going to hit this button. I'm going to hit that button. I'm going to hit this one, and then a tape. Okay.
Put the podcast desk. Maybe let me monitor the queue and hit play and see if it's there. Okay. That didn't go out on the program, did it? Oh no.
Yeah. And it could. And anyway, that's how I was. So seeing another personality work that way with the clock ticking, Mary Jane's Last Dance is just fading off, man. And he did it. And it was really like you'd have to picture me having my back to you, and then turning my chair quickly to get to you and opening my mic. It was like this. 198 Rock, it's Stash. And never felt out of breath. Point being, there's audio guys that are really talented, and there's many different shades to audio. He was particularly strong behind the mic, which probably is where I need to be most times. But when I get in trouble, there's only a handful of people I'd call, and Scotty's top of the list. He's there. So he knows a lot about these things and can hear things, people who can really kind of hear. And what I've always found value in Scotty's work and a couple other people I work with, being engineers, they become so intimate with your tone, and they know what's missing. If it's a microphone, they can, you're a little off here at the effing whatever hertz, and I'm just like, you can roll off 80, and I'm like, I got you. Can you do that for me? Because if you
it takes time to get there. It takes a lot of time and exposure to audio to get to that point. So, I mean, just for context for folks, I've been working as a professional audio engineer since about 2000, working in recording studios and working with major label artists and doing mastering and editing and analog tape to digital archiving of some pretty priceless master tapes, and doing all these years. exposed to this and sitting at a console and running sessions and multiple headphone mixes and monitor mixes. And we used to do live, speaking of Baltimore radio stations, 99.1 WHFS, when HFS moved from, the Bethesda and became the alternative rock station. They had this program that would run on Sundays where they would have, they would get whatever big artist was in town to perform at, whatever the big arena was in Baltimore or DC, and they'd give away tickets on the radio, and they'd have a small in-studio performance at the studio where I work, and then these would be simulcast on the air live, and so one of my jobs was to help facilitate this, and so the band would be set up in the studio. There'd be 2 engineers that would be assigned to the session. So there'd be a small in-studio audience with a PA for the audience. The band would also have floor monitors or in-ear monitors so they can monitor themselves. Microphones would be coming in to the console. This would have been one of the big Neve VR60 console that was in Studio A. Mic signals would be coming in, and then we had to do 3 things with that mic signal. I had to go to 3 places. So I had to go to the multi-track recorder, so it would go to the Pro Tools rig. We had to be able to mix mix the band live for the in-studio audience from the control room. We had to provide the signals for all the monitor mixes, and then we had to do a live stereo mix of the signal, which would be sent to the radio station's engineer, who would have an ISDN box, a Zephyr.
A Zephyr.
No, a Zephyr,
so
a Zephyr
expensive.
ISDN box. And then the stereo output of the console, there'd be a live stereo mix happening with reverb and EQ and all that stuff, and that would get sent to the producer's desk, which is behind the mix position in the control room, and that would be patched into their equipment, which would then go ISDN to the station for transmit. And so having that all happening on the fly was I used to love those sessions so much. It was so much hair on fire. You have a big artist live in the studio, you got an in-studio audience, and then however many people are listening to the live broadcast that's being sent, and it's your mix that a million people might be listening to if it was a big artist. And it was a lot of fun.
That's a lot of pressure too. But you got to really know what you're doing, because if your technique wasn't right, you know what I mean? I don't know where you trained. You might want to talk about that, but it
goes back to the exposure to audio, and you come across folks that seem to know audio, and they can spit out frequencies. I'm like, a little boost around 2K or something like that will help that, or high pass that at 100 hertz. I'll get rid of that rumble. That just comes with time and exposure, doing it over and over and fucking up, and learning from that mistake. And then over time you develop this sort of connection with these different frequency bands, and it's like muscle memory, but with your hearing. When it comes to for audio frequencies, and if distortions and things that just don't sound right, whether it be too tinny, too bright, too boomy, too bassy, you can immediately react to that and compensate for it quickly and effectively, and that's something that just comes with time and exposure. It's nothing you can learn, like watch a YouTube video, like, okay, I can hear everything and EQ stuff effectively and quickly right away. And it's just an exposure thing.
I totally get it. And I have a conversation, I think, with myself sometimes when I'm getting frustrated, or work situation, or how much radio in the industry has changed. You used to have a crack at getting in, and things just changed so much. I remember when Earl was still at WMMR, and he was, I guess at that point, that's when we first met. He told me, you should have went to law school. And at the time I was like, Earl, like, I revere Earl. He's a king. Like, that voice and that knowledge. It's not just about having the pipes. He's got that. He listens to his headphones too loud. I worry about his ears, but that's 30 years of knowing a guy. But he put his headphones down.
We all do.
I can imagine listening to my voice at that rate, but he's got everything coming back at him. And it's just, but he said, you should have gone to law school. And at the time I was like, no, sir. I'm at WMMR in Philadelphia. I am excited to be here. I'm going on the air after Earl Bailey. And, there was times when I was working at night. I was doing 7 to midnight in Philadelphia, and he would come in and he recorded this show called Rock and Roll Roots. And it's probably very similar to what you'd hear now if you're catching him on Sirius XM. And Earl's got a guy. See, we have these guys, the broadcasters. I found Scotty. I don't know how we found each other, buddy, but I don't, we tend to have that. Earl's got a guy. If Earl records anything and he's going to send it out, it goes through his guy. You know what I mean? That's what happens. And so some of us had guys. Anyway, I would watch Earl. That ain't going to come out right. You bastards better not make any meme out of that. That didn't sound right. I knew it as soon as it left.
Clip that.
don't
Clip that and use it.
What was I saying?
Replay it on 7200.
Well, I would be on 7. I'd be live. I'd be doing my show at nighttime in Philly, and he would come over and record Rock and Roll Roots. We had a big glass window between his studio that he was in, which was a sit-down studio. Mine, broadcasting live, we were standing up. So I would drop him in queue, and Scotty might have to explain the queue position in a second so I can get my story out. But I dropped the board in the queue, his studio in the queue, and I'm listening and he's like, that was Genesis from, and I'm like, Jesus Christ. It's like there were kings walking around, like these rock dinosaurs he killed it in New York. He killed it in Philly. Like, this guy is amazing. Love you, Earl. I'll never hear this, but we'll cut this. But I don't know what I said, but it didn't come out right. I didn't mean it.
Q is just an option on consoles, broadcast consoles, even audio consoles. It allows you to listen to an external source other than what's actually going out of the main program output to the transmitter. So it allows you to kind of listen to other signals that you have going on that aren't being broadcast through the main outputs to either to the transmitter or whatever. So you can kind of preview. It's kind of like a preview mode.
I would listen to him do his show, and I would try to do mine. And there was a time when I just got to Philly, and I was like, what am I doing here? Like, I don't belong here. It's one of those feelings, like the same with Stash. The level that these guys are working with their audio, and they're ripping and running and doing it. And then you drop your board into queue and hear that man doing that. And I'm like, what am I doing? But I think what Scotty said is over time, it develops and it grows. And it's the same with the radio. If you're new to amateur radio, the best piece of advice I got, Scotty, I think, was from a guy called Lanny. And he just said, slow down. And I looked at him, and it's because I wanted, we all want that perfect audio. We all want that perfect antenna. We want that perfect radio. And you just don't get there. Even if you buy the best rig or the best antenna, there's so much to learn between the knobs, as it were. So
there is, especially with transceivers these days. Oh, excuse me. There's a lot of audio processing that's available, whether it's the signal coming in from your mic, equalization, or processing, as they call it. That's there's some dynamic range compression. We can talk about that in a little bit. And then there's a lot of audio processing capabilities on the receive side to help you receive audio, bandwidth filtering. On Yaesu's they have something called Contour, which is kind of like either a notch filter or sort of a peak filter. It allows you to kind of boost a certain frequency range to pull out a voice better, or to null out some boominess or something like that. And if being exposed to audio, that sort of stuff comes. I understand what that is intuitively, but a lot of people that haven't been around audio, most of their lives, it can be tricky to figure out what to do with that stuff and get things dialed in to help improve their transmit audio, improve their receive audio. So there's a lot of options there now that can be overwhelming. My old FT 101, there's just the mic gain, and that was it. A lot of stuff going on now.
Something came on. There's something that runs in this rental house.
Yeah,
I
it's
don't
not
know
bad.
if it's okay. Just a little hum as we talk about audio, but it's real, man. It's real, and these are the things I have trouble with during if I need to record during the day. It's like I'd rather sit in the cold with the heat off than have it running next door
And that big
and
noise, get that
bleed
noise
into
off the
my
mic.
shit. Don says Earl's the man on Sirius. He sure is. And if we were talking about Earl Bailey, and Earl's been a friend and mentor of mine since 1998, and he's also the voice of 100 Watts and Wire. It sounds like this.
Little pistols and big guns. This is 100 watts and a wire.
Yeah, so you just hang your mic up. You know what I mean? It's like there are people that are like, take the right testicle. If I could sound like Earl or the guy who did Star Wars, James Earl Jones, to me the best like voices. I mean, there's so many great ones. But for me, those two guys. Here's another one from Earl. Hit it, Earl.
Made in America, shared worldwide. This is 100 watts and a wire.
Yeah, he's got a guy.
He's got the voice.
He was
The voice for
using
radio.
a Neumann, I think a TL3, I think is what they use. Or he might, you know that one? It's a.
There's
Is it a
TLM
TLM?
103.
103.
TLM 103. Yeah.
I got most of those
very,
numbers.
very, very popular mic.
Yeah, I tried it, and it was
They're bright. They're pretty bright.
It was
but I
too
think
bright.
his
It was
his
too bright
voice,
for
I
me.
could see that high end boost kind of bringing out that sizzle in his vocal cords, and it gets that little bit of vocal fry, which makes his voice sound a little bit better.
Here's one for you, Don. Don is a net control operator on the 100 Watts and Wire Sunday Evening Net. We're talking audio tonight. It's Christian Hay. Thanks for coming by. If you come by, that's cool. Here's one of Earl. A special dedication to Don Z.
Back to net control with Christian, K0STH.
Back to net control. All right, I'll stop that. I love that. We need to drop those in there, though. We need to drop them in.
Those are some good clips. There's some good drops.
I used to put them in more when I used to produce the show. So 438. It's give or take. It's got to be more because there were other things when we did special stuff, Katrina, and they weren't properly numbered as straight episodes. I don't know why I didn't do it right, but if you go back, we're 438 on paper. I used to do a little more audio work and moving things around. I loved his drops, and I need to get back to it. We have to have Earl because his voice is just too good. And I got him. You know what I mean? I got him here. But when I was producing more, I would take a week and I'd put it together, and I'd have 2 or 3 in the can of the show, really, unless they were something that had to be very specific. And then I stopped kind of, we were just bang it out and let it go kind of deal. We don't really spend a whole lot of time. It kind of is what it is, if you see what I mean.
When in doubt, hang 'em high. This is 100 watts and a wire.
Yes, sir.
I haven't heard any of these before. That's great.
Really? Okay,
Yeah.
I'll keep dropping them in. You might like this one.
Whether you say 7.3 or 73, even 73s, we're still 100 watts and a wire.
Hey, now.
That one I do remember.
All right. So that's what's up with that. We have some questions that have come in over the time, and I know Scotty gets them, and you guys send notes, and it's all great. And if you have a question now, go ahead and drop it. But here's an interesting question that we could talk about for a spell. And the question is, do you run a dynamic or a condenser mic, and why? And I guess we would be doing ourselves a big favor to have Scotty tell us the difference between layman's terms, Scotty, because we got plumbers and all kind of brothers doing different stuff. You start getting too much into the weeds, but dynamics and condenser microphones, I guess we can set the stage there. And there's other ones that ribbon microphones. I mean, I'll tell you a story about a ribbon later, but go ahead, Scotty. Would you
when
mind?
you get into just to studio grade audio than that, but the two most common microphone types in the studio for high end pro audio, but also in the ham radio world, the mics, the handheld mics that even come with your transceiver when you buy one. are going to be one of two categories of mics. It's going to be what's referred to as a dynamic microphone or a condenser microphone. The difference between the two is how the audio signal is created. Audio signal is going to be voltage that is coming out of the microphone down the microphone cable, and then it's going to go into an amplification stage, so that voltage is increased to increase the signal strength before it moves on to the next stage. And so how a dynamic microphone creates voltage based off of sound wave movement is using what's called a moving coil, which is exactly the same way that a speaker works. So most folks are probably familiar with how a speaker looks. You got the basket and you have the paper cone, and then there's like a magnet around the back. And so how that works is that how a speaker works is that a voltage alternating current is applied to the coil, to the magnet, and the different polarities of the magnetic field causes the voice coil that's in the center of the magnet to either push forward based on the polarity of the magnetic field or pull backwards based on the polarity of the magnetic field. And that causes the movement of the woofer, which then changes the air pressure molecules in front of the speaker, and the sound wave travels to your ear. So a dynamic microphone literally works field causes the voice.
I'm sorry, buddy. I'm sorry. That was me.
And a dynamic mic works pretty much exactly the opposite of that. You have your diaphragm, which could be akin to the cone on the speaker, and the diaphragm is very thin, typically very thin mylar or something like that. And attached to the back of that is literally this little coil of copper wire in a magnetic field. And so as the sound pressure waves in the room cause these minute vibrations on that little diaphragm, it causes the coil in that magnetic field to vibrate, to move back and forth ever so slightly, because it's attached to the diaphragm, literally glued onto the back. And then that creates minuscule voltage changes based off of that coil moving back and forth in a magnetic field, and that is your audio signal. It's a very low voltage alternating current voltage that then needs to be amplified through a preamplifier. And that's the basis of how a dynamic mic works. The mic I'm using right now is of a dynamic mic variety. This is a Shure SM7B, and it is using that same principle. And a lot of microphones that come with your transceiver are going to use a similar technique. It's robust. They sound, they can sound really good. And they can take a lot of abuse. They're not super fragile or anything. They can get beat up quite a bit, and their frequency response is certainly adequate for radio. Excuse me, I'm drinking the Coke. The Coke Zero's got me a little burpy. And it's an easy microphone to implement. Has a relatively low output impedance. It doesn't need any external power to make it work. And so it's a very common microphone type. The other most common, and the type of microphone that you're using here tonight, is what's called a condenser mic, and it uses a completely different principle to create this minuscule voltage that is the sound that the microphone is hearing. So the condenser mic, literally, it's a capacitor where you have two plates inside the capsule, and this is you need to apply a static voltage to those plates to create a static field, electrical field between the two plates, the diaphragm and then the backing plate. So there needs to be a voltage present to create this static electrical field between the two surfaces. And then how they work is that the sound waves in the room cause minute vibrations in the diaphragm, and that makes it get a little closer or a little farther away from the backing plate, which changes the capacitance between the two surfaces. And that difference in capacitance is then the sum and difference of that is now your audio, and that goes usually through a small preamplifier, usually a JFET or something in the microphone, because it's a really high impedance signal, and it's very, very weak, and it needs lots of amplification. So usually a JFET, and most condenser mics, because they have a very high input impedance, and they have a lot of gain available to them. So they take that signal right off the diaphragm and amplify it a little bit at first before it even then leaves the output of the microphone and needs to be amplified even further with a microphone preamp. And so that's how condenser mics get their signal. The difference between the two really comes down to sensitivity. With the dynamic mic, you have you have a diaphragm, a membrane that literally has a small coil of copper glued to the back of it. So there's a fair amount of mass there. And so it takes a little bit more oomph, especially in the high frequencies. High frequencies tend to have very weak energy. To get the diaphragm to move, accurately based off of the sound wave, sound pressure changes in the room. Where a condenser microphone, you have a very, very thin layer of mylar, usually like 2 or 3 microns thick, that is very sensitive to vibrations, and so higher frequencies tend to move the diaphragm on a condenser mic a little easier than the diaphragm on a dynamic mic, and that gives the condenser mic the sound that it has a more extended top end, that has a smoother, more responsive treble, high frequency content than a lot of dynamics do, and that comes down to the physical weight of the diaphragm and how much energy it takes and at what frequency to get those diaphragms to start wiggling a little bit to spit out some voltage. And that's really the main difference between the two mics. They both can sound fantastic, and they both can sound like crap too, depending on how they're employed.
As the operator, yeah, yep. So dynamic. What if I'm catching the vibe of what you're saying? And thank you for that detailed summary of those two things. I just put him on the spot. See, he recalled that like it was nothing. Okay, but we got to go back. The rest of us will have to rewind and go back. But what I think I'm hearing you say is that the dynamics will handle the RF better and maybe beat down some of the room noise as well. Would you say that is fair, or it depends?
So we have with room noise, being that the microphone diaphragm does require a little bit more energy to get it energy in the room, meaning the sound wave pressure, the sound pressure waves in the room to get the diaphragm to wiggle. Sounds that are off axis to the mic, and what off axis is go over here. I'm way off axis of the mic right now. Sounds that are off axis tend to be attenuated more on a dynamic mic because there's less direct sound wave pressure on the diaphragm, and the diaphragm is a little bit more difficult to move to begin with based on its construction. Whereas Scotty, clearly gummy free tonight.
I'm not sure
Thanks,
sure
Mark.
about that. I don't know. We don't have those random tests here.
We're a condenser microphone, being that the diaphragm is much thinner, much more sensitive to pressure changes, even off-axis sounds, while the energy is attenuated just based off of the distance and directionality of the sound headed towards the microphone. Being that they're more sensitive to movement anyway, the off-axis sound comes through more than on a dynamic. So if you're in a room and you have an echoey room, it sounds like you're in a bathroom, and those sound reflections are going to get back to the microphone. A dynamic microphone in that situation would work better because of the less sensitivity to off-axis sounds that it has compared to a condenser mic. A condenser mic is going to reveal those off-axis reflections more clearly in the output signal, and it'll be more obvious on a condenser. So that'd be an example of where one would probably be preferred over the other.
I've just been handed a note.
100 watts and a wire news.
This just in, Bob Heil would like to chime in on.
Don't get off don't get off axis. Oh no, you gotta suck it. You gotta be right here.
Yeah.
And that was in reference to
and the
proximity side coming off axis of a microphone he was discussing.
And how mics are typically, they're all dynamics as far as I know, and so that would make sense. But that's true for any mic. I mean, you want to get the sound on axis for maximum signal strength and maximum frequency response.
Now, this may be an opinion. We don't know if that's going across the podcast or if it's related to being on the air. So we'll have to check on that. PRK radio, the SM57B always sounds a little buzzy to my ears, but I'm old, so it could just be me.
No, I've heard that about the SM. The SM7 microphone, a lot of audio guys will either love it or hate it. And I'm using one now. I have it mostly because I didn't get it for this purpose, and I do use this on the air with my radio. But Yeah, some guys they don't like the SM7 so much. One of the biggest complaints with the SM7 is it's got a really low output, so it requires tons of gain to get a good solid signal out of it. And so you got to have either some sort of a preamplifier, like something made by something called a cloud lifter, or some sort of there's various inline sort of phantom powered preamps. The phantom power isn't required for a dynamic mic, but if you're going to put a gain stage in between the output of the microphone and the input of your preamp on whatever you ultimately want to plug the mic into, an audio interface or a mixer or something, these little inline preamps will kind of give the signal a little bit of a boost, so you don't have to crank the gain on the mic preamp as much, and that's going to help keep the noise floor down. So SM7s can get a little noisy because you really have to crank the gain on the mic input to get the signal up there, and that brings up the self noise of the microphone and the self noise of the mic preamp and the channel,
and your mouth noise and everything else.
And all
going
that,
in. Yum, 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 yum.
The RE, the RE20 would be the Electro Voice sort of competing model of the SM7, which is the RE20 probably hands down my all-time favorite microphone for everything. I have one, but it needs to be repaired.
I have one too, and I think mine needs to be fixed too. I knew when it was kind of given to me by an engineer friend, and it was had been so retired that the foam on the inside, the wind filter on the inside.
That's the big thing that goes with them.
Dust. It was a big pile of dust, and I don't know. It probably needs to be cleaned and tested properly. I've tried it. I've done multiple shootouts here. Scotty will tell you, because he's
if the foam is decayed that it gets crumbled. It's like turns into like this sticky dust, and that's going to get all over the diaphragm membrane, and that's going to weigh it down. That's going to drastically reduce the sensitivity of the microphone, and it can be cleaned. And there's refoam kits for those. The mics are very difficult to disassemble, but
it's a tiny screw, like a little tiny screw. It's like a little helmet.
Just a little set screw for the grill. It's an Allen head, and it's like the smallest one I've ever seen. I had to buy a special one just because it didn't come with any Allen key set.
It's like an eyeglass.
It's tiny, and then you back that off a little bit, and then it unscrews right off, and then you unscrew the bottom, and then the whole thing kind of slides apart.
I want so bad.
Yeah, that's the big failure on the RE20s is that they've been around, especially if it's an old one. They've been around a long time. That foam just decays and just adheres itself to the diaphragm and just makes the mic sound like crap.
Every quality radio station I had worked in had them. And they change now. I mean, some put Heil's PR40s like Sirius. I think if you catch anything in Sirius, he got all that. So good on him for that. I mean, that was a good thing. But 98 Rock, even some of those, the ones I was telling you that were off in the sticks a little bit, they were trying to use the RE20s, and everybody was kind of sounding the same. Sadly, on the air, because everybody was compressed at the same way, and it just was one tone,
Everyone's using the same broadcast chain, so it's so in addition to the mic, and this is true in the studio, and also can be true for your ham jack setup. Is you get the microphone, and then you have this other signal processing that can be included. I know at the broadcast level, there's a handful of you got the Orban was a big maker of broadcast signal processors. There's Symmetrics. They have a sort of a DJ vocal channel. I've found some used ones on eBay. I want to get one that has some cool broadcast specific sort of signal processing for your microphones. So everyone's using these same mics through these same signal chains, and then they probably got an Optimod on the processor on the before the transmitter. So everybody's got the same mic input, same compressor, same EQ settings, and then same dynamic processing going to the output transmitter. And so everyone's going to start to get that homogeneous sound. Everyone's going to sound like God.
Yeah. I don't know if they all do. You know what I mean? I guess people who are a little, I don't know, I would say who may have a voice that isn't, "Hi, I'm Delilah." did you eat your vegetables? You know what I mean? And she's soothing at night, and she's got something pleasant. I would think it just felt like everyone sounded the same. And yeah, even female voices. And that's interesting because, you're generally putting a small team of people's ear to what they want the station to sound like coming out of that transmitter. And I always felt that, yes, we had these killer mics. And if Scotty took me in the studio and set me up with one, and I cut a bunch of stuff, which it can happen, that it would sound different than what we were putting out over there in the other studio, just because he'd have more ability to shape my thing. And maybe this goes back to one size doesn't fit all. And some of these rigs, when you're getting into adjusting levels, whether it's basically in the ICOM, I know you guys, maybe you've seen that menu, but it's user friendly, but it doesn't go too deep. And this may usher us into at least an introduction to mixers. And I can talk about how I use mine. Scotty's, doing into the radio. I'm basically setting mine up for this purpose so I can record and so I can listen on decent speakers. They're kind of shitty right now, and I need help with that. My speaker system in this studio sucks. It has nothing to do with the room. It's and what's going on in an old wooden place, but my speakers are not. They're old JBLs. And speaking of Dr. Bob Heil, he even suggested those on Ham Nation, showed you how to hook them up. So I was like, JBLs. And I did it. And they're just, they've been beaten up and banged around and kicked around, and they just sound really thin. But my mixer is for my pleasure, coming out of my radio back into my room so I can hear it a little bit. Now, when I go to work, I'm going to put my headphones on and I'll work. But I'm directly going into my rig. I don't go through a mixer going in. I believe Scotty's doing something different. He can tell you about that, and at least the beginnings of it. But inside the radio itself, you would hope to get a decent sound out of your microphone, but you don't have a lot of depth there, is my point. When you go in the menu in the ICOM, very easy to use. You got 4 cracks at it. 1, 2, or 3 or 4, and so
on the ICOM, there's this kind of preset EQ thing.
Yeah, they don't go very deep.
I don't have any ICOM, so I don't know what their signal process, what their TX
Likewise.
audio processing capabilities are.
To Yaesu, I don't have Yaesu, so I don't know. I'm not as familiar, or not familiar at all. I have played with a Yaesu in the past, portable rig.
That sounds like a bit easier for somebody that's not as audio savvy to kind of experiment with, to try to find their sound. With the Yaesu, my main rig is it's an older rig, but it's an FTDX 3000, and it's got a pretty extensive transmit audio. There's a 3-band parametric equalizer, which gives me the ability to boost or cut, choose the frequency, and then also the bandwidth of that booster cut. So there's a 3-band parametric, which can be a little daunting. If you have no idea what the hell a parametric equalizer is, and in the menu, the way the menu's laid out, it's not you can't really hear in real time what your adjustments are doing, because you have to choose. All right, here's the low frequency band, and then here's your frequencies you can choose between 100 hertz and 400 hertz, and you can boost it or cut it by 8 decibels. And then with the parametric equalizer, how that works is that you pick a frequency that the band gives you access to. Usually with a 3-band equalizer, you'll have the low band, which will give you frequency selection, say between 100 hertz and maybe 400 hertz, and you can choose between there, and then you can boost at that frequency to kind of bring up the low end, or you can reduce the gain of the signal at that frequency. And then you have the bandwidth adjustment, which you can kind of think of it as like say you have a sheet. Kind of like pulled tight in the air, so you just have the sheet laid out, and you kind of pick the sheet, pinch it at 100 hertz, and you kind of pull up on it, and you're doing your boost, and so you're going to have this like sort of bell curve that goes on around where you've pinched, and so where you pinched is referred to as the center frequency, and then the bandwidth that you've selected is how wide is that sort of that sheet falling away from the pinch back down to the original position. how many frequencies above and below where you've pinched are also being affected. And so that's the bandwidth adjustment on a parametric equalizer. And without being able to really play with the three bands in real time to try to dial in your audio, it can be a real pain in the ass actually on Yaesu. I kind of like my older my FT 450 has like 3 or 4 or 4 or 5 mic preset that for the mic EQ. It gives you like a bass boost, gives you a bass cut, gives you a mid boost, a mid cut, or a treble boost and a treble cut, or various combinations of that high boost and low cut, or low
So if
boost
you
or
know
boost.
what you're doing, that's
So you can pick
nice.
through that because you
That's
just have a
nice.
couple presets to choose from. It makes it a lot easier to kind of get something that you think sounds better than just having no EQ at all.
Right.
But when you get into the rigs that have parametric equalization, and then this one has parametric equalization adjustments for the normal EQ, and then if I kick in the speech processor, there's a secondary EQ in addition to vocal compression that allows me to EQ the signal further along with the amount of compression that's happening. It can be, if you don't have any experience with dealing with multi-band parametric equalizers, it can be pretty daunting and discouraging to get in there and start messing around with that stuff.
You get yourself in trouble too. I mean, your
Yeah.
sound, you could make your sound terrible. So I get what you're saying about the ICOM in that way of keeping things. I think if you went too far in one direction, somebody's going to say something like back it off a little bit. It'll be like, can you back down your a little bit? You're kind of bassy. And then a layperson who's doing another profession, has an area of expertise elsewhere, can kind of go bloop to 3. Is that any better, Tom? That kind of thing.
Yeah, and you hear guys doing that on the air all the time. And I think there's a guy in New Mexico, I can't recall his call, who's kind of known for that. People will reach out to him on the air and he like knows like the menus on like a bunch of different rigs, and he'll assist people with their audio, and he'll say, okay,
I've seen that.
go to menu 43, and then he'll have them tweak these EQ settings and show and guide them through how to get to those EQ settings on whatever rig it is they're using. It's amazing. The guy's amazing. He gets these guys dialed in.
I know who you're talking about.
Sounding great. Yeah. I can't recall his call sign. I think he's in New Mexico. But.
Well, I don't know anything about him either, but I have looked him up because I've heard him on the air, and then it says
He's amazing. He's absolutely amazing.
A broadcast engineer, and has the voice of I've been on the radio forever too. I mean, he's good.
But he also has that top of his head knowledge of I've been around broadcast equipment for my entire life. It's great. I would sit and listen for sometimes if I was picking them up clean. Some nights I'll hear them. If I come across them, I'm just scanning the bands, and I'll come across them. I got a decent signal on them. I'll just sit and listen to them, like work with people, and I'm just like shaking my head, going, "This guy is absolutely amazing." And I'm listening to the other person's voice, kind of taking shape as he's guiding them through these EQ settings, and listening to the audio of the other person just kind of get dialed in. I'm just like, that's incredible.
They'll say, he'll say what radio you're working with, and it'll be 7300. Okay, and then you need to do this.
He knows the menu number. He knows what frequency selections are available on that rig. It's incredible.
All right, let me go ahead, and we gotta take care of this.
Oh,
girl,
no.
If you're looking for a power solution, check out BioNO Power, offering the best lithium phosphate batteries for your ham radios. Visit bionopower.com. That's BIOENNO Power, baby. .com. And that's how we do it here. Oh. What are we doing? The band is like, that's it, boys. We've been canceled. I think we got canceled.
No, we're still there. I was highlighting the BioNO link to drop in the chat, and I didn't realize it was hyperlinked in my text document. It like took me to the website. I'm like, oh shit! I just lost the login to the podcast, but it fortunately opened up a new tab anyway. But being able to monitor it, I mean, I think it's extremely important. We're talking about trying to get optimizing sound, and in this case, optimizing your transmit sound. You got to be able to hear yourself as you're making these adjustments, and otherwise you're just kind of shooting in the dark. I don't know. A lot of rigs will have what they call a monitor function, which will allow you to hear your audio back through however you're listening, whether through headphones or through the speaker on the rig or external speaker, and allow you to, if you throw your rig into a dummy load, kick in the monitor function, and then you can, audio, and then you can start playing with these EQ adjustments to try to get where you're at. What I've done is I've used a local web SDRs, and so I got kind of a compromised antenna set, so I can't dial in the Utah SDR on 40 meters and expect to get a decent signal into there enough for me to make judgments on my audio. But an SDR option that I absolutely love for this is the Kiwi SDR network. And these are like people's personal SDRs that they make the stream available on a little private port on their network at home, and they're everywhere. And I can find one that's local that I can get a good strong signal into. I just find a dead dead spot in the band, and then I'll put my call out, just frequency use, put my call out, and just explain I'm going to be doing some audio testing, and then I'm listening back to the SDR, so I'm hearing my signal as it's actually hit the antenna, hit somebody else's antenna, and it's coming back to me. And it's been invaluable to help assess, and without somebody there to get feedback from live on the air, to get feedback on the audio. And I highly suggest that people that are looking into trying to improve their transmit sound, it's easy to like, I want to get a new mic, I want to get a fancy mic, and then some guys are using like a mixer and they're plugging into the mixer and plugging in the radio. But you can get a lot done with the stock microphone, and the transmit audio capabilities that the rig provides for you as far as EQ and things, and get things dialed in a bit if you're able to hear yourself like that through maybe a nearby SDR, or even just the monitor function on the rig. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
Another way,
it's extremely important. It's important to be able to hear what it is that you're doing instead of just taking shots in the dark.
I think you could also record on those websites. I think you can.
Yeah, you can. A lot of them will give you allow you to record like an MP3 or something like that.
So you can take it and say, what do you think of this? Or let me hear this in my car, or let me hear it through a different speaker than my little Tina Turner computer speaker. So I think that's always a good option. And if you're going to do it, go ahead.
Oh yeah, I was going to say for the folks that are running, I know a lot of people will use a lot of newer rigs, the 7300s and newer AC rigs and newer other ICOM rigs. They have the USB audio card built in. You hook up a USB cable to your rig, for running digital modes, whatever. But being an audio guy, I have audio software on my computer that I'm running, and so what I can do is I can set up the rig as an audio source. I can open up, say, Pro Tools or even like Audacity or any sort of audio recording software on your computer, and your rig's going to show up as a USB codec audio source, because you have to have the drivers in there to get it all working to begin with, to be able to do the FL Digi and the FT8 or whatever with your rig. And then what you can do is you can then record your radio right off, record your signal right off the USB audio, and be able to listen to that and make assessments and record your audio that way. And I've done that a lot. And a really cool thing that I've done, that I continue to play with, is actually using a piece of digital audio recording software as my real-time audio transmit signal processor. Because a lot of these software will come with tons of different, high-powered equalizers and limiters and compressors and gates and all sorts of cool stuff. And I can take the audio. In my case, I can plug my microphone, instead of into my rig, I plug my microphone into my audio interface and get that signal inputted into the software in real time. And then some of these pieces of software will allow you to apply plugins or the individual signal processing modules onto that signal in real time, and then set the output of that audio software to the the USB codec that's going to the radio. You tell the radio to receive audio on the USB port, and then when I hit the PTT, my audio is going into Pro Tools or Audacity, being processed with whatever EQs, compressors, limiters,
Ooh,
and then that's
fun.
leaving. And then that's leaving and going to the rig for transmit. So that's a really cool thing that I've been playing around with. I've been wanting to do a video on it because I don't know if many people are doing. I'm sure there's some people that are doing that, but that gives you a whole world of audio processing power, not just for transmit, but you can also monitor, receive through that too, and you can load plugins and things to help shape the RX audio. Through your, through a digital audio workstation like Pro Tools or something, or Logic or Reaper, and having that USB, which a lot of rigs do, that gives you that ability is right there, because that your radio is essentially your audio interface at that point, and audio is going into the software and then going out USB to the rig and going on the air. And so I've been playing around with that with some success. There's a little bit of latency, but it's not bad. It's on the order of just a few milliseconds, depending on the software that you're using. But something for the more adventurous, that's something I highly recommend experimenting with and playing around with the digital audio workstation for your signal processing.
A final note before we go. And thank you for that. All that, Scotty. That's so good. And if you're going to do this with a buddy, say on the air, try to pinpoint a good night, a clear night. Too much noise, and you got to really kind of trust. I always thought to myself, like, I don't know, man, this guy's just kind of joined a QSO, a conversation already in progress. Hey, fellas, Ricky over here in Oklahoma. Breaker. Welcome in, Ricky. Sounded good at night. I forgot what I was going to say about all that. But I like the characters. That was a good QSO, wasn't it, boys?
Yeah, that's right. Yes. Good.
Gummies are kicking in.
So, and if you're just jumping into a QSO that's already underway, and if maybe the guys, maybe you don't. I've always thought it's really risky when somebody doesn't really know what you sound like. Gets back to the studio stuff. You trust the people who know your voice. What your voice would need. Does this mic work for this application? Like, it's a give and take. It's a thing. So I always cringe a little bit when they jump into conversations with people who don't really know them. And if it's what I say communication quality. I think, like, if you hear it's communication quality, I'm like okay, because it's kind of like you're getting through. You're making it. What else you want? So, try to do it with somebody whose ear you trust, I think. And on a clear night, that helps.
There's ways to do it. Somebody on the air, or in lieu of that, trying to find a way to monitor yourself on the air, again, through these SDRs, or recording yourself, even locally. Like I said, if you got the USB hooked up to your computer, you easily have the ability to do that. Audacity is free. Reaper, which is a great multi-track, almost pro level digital audio workstation, that's free. And then and you can use these things to record audio right off of your rig through the just like the similar to how the monitor function would work, and get some feedback on how you sound that way.
Because what you want to sound like, you know what I mean. You kind of know, but then you'll talk to a lot of people and they'll say, I hate what I sound like on an answer phone, or I hate what my voice sounds like. I get that more than I'm like, no, like, that's really great. You sound great. It was a clean read. It was beautiful. That, but I hate listening back to my voice. Mm-mm.
Yeah, most people do. It sounds weird. One of the drawbacks that I found, that at least in my opinion, about doing the monitor function or recording yourself locally on a computer is that there's no band noise. And so you get this crystal clear, it's bandpassed and stuff, and it is your transmit audio with all the filtering and bandpass filtering and all that stuff in place. And it's important to be able to hear that. But I think it's extremely important to be able to hear how that holds up in the sea of noise that is the HF bands. Yeah. Which is where I find the SDR option very useful, because it allows you to hear how you sound in the noise. And so what you hear on your voice by itself without that noise, either locally through the monitor function or the recording, you may find that you may need to make some adjustments to your EQ or your compression settings, so that your voice sounds more robust within that noise, and that those settings on your voice by itself without the noise might sound a little bit off to you, and so you might not think that that's the right sound to go with. But in the context of the hash that is HF bands, that might be exactly what is needed to get the voice sitting nicely within that noise. So context is always important. And I think that's, especially in audio and mixing and stuff, everything's got to blend with everything else. It doesn't really matter how good it sounds by itself. How it sounds with everything else that matters. And I think with ham radio, with amateur radio, how your voice sounds in context of the noise that's generally there on the HF bands is important, because you might need to do a little extra EQ boost on the top end or whatever to kind of get your voice to cut, which by itself without that noise might sound a little overly harsh or bright, and so you'd have a tendency to back that off. But then in the noise, it's not as clear as it could be.
That's a great point, Scotty, and we'll wrap it up there, because we got into one topic and here we are an hour deep. And I've got to watch a movie.
Talk about this shit for hours, man.
My daughters are having me watch Hocus Pocus 2 tonight. So after this show, we're going to be doing that.
It is the time of the season.
Your boy is folded in half for the next, I don't know, a little too long staying seated. But what a lesson, Scotty. Thank you so much for all of that. There's every voice is different. I think every microphone is different. Every room is different. And it really will depend on what your goals are. If you're, Scotty touched on it, if you're trying to cut through a pileup, you don't mind cutting your voice. You just want to remember how to get back. Nobody wants to be too bassy on the air. I've over the 10 plus whatever years now, most people don't appreciate the bass, the low ends that much. If it's too much bass, people are like, "Can you pull it back?"
Yeah,
a little
makes
bit.
It hard to copy.
So it's a little different.
It sounds fine in the clear, but again, on the air with other people, maybe some adjacent band noise, that bass just makes things unclear.
And in a contest, people want to cut through. So I mean, they will take their sound to the place that will cut through this pileup. So to the situational,
they're gonna boost all the mid range like that.
Yeah,
and do the thing.
And if for nothing else, you'll pick that person so they will go the fuck away and stop hurting your ears. Did I say that out loud? No, but that works. It does work. You're going to cut through, or pretend that you're a YL. Always. The ladies get through.
This is where, if you're using a digital audio workstation, you could put a pitch shift plug in on your voice and bring it up a few cents.
Yeah. Hey.
And then
Is this
suddenly,
North Korea?
Suddenly you're an XYL, and you'll get preferable treatment in the pileup.
The YL, they're smacking the men. The YL. Was there a YL? Nope. Yeah. Okay. I think that was good. We can revene. We can actually explore this more as we go. So I hope that was useful.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
There's
I could
so
talk
much
about this
to
kind
say.
of stuff for hours and hours.
We got
and
a
hours
little
and hours.
radio. We got a little conversation, some stories, some classics, and how does it work? It's good to have an audio engineer when you're a producer and do this, what I do, to have a guy like that help make you sound good. And every live band that you'd ever go see, they need to thank the sound man. Like it's the first person or woman that they're going to run to, and they're going to appreciate and pay them a crap ton of money, right, Scotty? Scotty's rich.
Right.
Son of a bastards. Thank you guys so much. Thank you, Scotty.
Yeah,
We
man.
appreciate you. KC3BXN, have a great evening, everybody who chose to come by and chooses to continue to listen. We appreciate you. So
Absolutely.
have a great night. And by all means, please try and stay above the noise.
To join the 100 Watts in a Wire community, visit 100wattsinawire.com.